you. Good evening and thank you for attending the meeting of the Cabinet. Cabinet is meeting this evening in person in the Council chamber with appropriate social distancing requirements. It will be conducted by use of the hybrid meeting system to enable it to be streamed on YouTube. This will enable officers to contribute remotely if required. Voting this evening will be by way of a show of hands, which will be witnessed and recorded by a Democratic Services officer in attendance. The agenda and reports for this meeting are available on the Council's website. In attendance this evening to support this meeting with any technical advice are the Council's Chief Executive, Dr. Helen Patterson, together with the Head of Law, Stuart Portman, and our Democratic Services officers. Executive Directors are joining the meeting remotely and they will introduce themselves if they are called to speak. Before we start the meeting, I'll introduce myself, Councillor Mike Bird. I'm the Leader of the Council and Chairman of the Cabinet this evening. I'll also ask my colleagues to introduce themselves as I go from left to right, which is unusual for me. Firstly, my Deputy.
Councillor Adrian Andre, Deputy Leader of Walsall Council.
Councillor Gary Perry, Deputy Leader, Resilient Communities.
Councillor Mark Statham, Portfolio Holder for Internal Services.
Councillor Keir Pedley, Portfolio Holder for Adult Social Care.
Councillor Christo, Cabinet Member for Education and Skills.
Councillor Tim Wilson, Cabinet Member for Children's Services.
Councillor Oliver Butler, Portfolio Holder for Clean and Green.
Councillor Stephen Craddock, I'm the Portfolio Holder for Health and Wellbeing.
I can confirm that we have a quorum for the meeting and therefore we can continue. I have no items of apologies, which is item 1 on the agenda, as everybody's present. I have the minutes circulated and been on the Council's website, which is on page 77 to 20. Can I move that we approve the minutes as a correct record? Seconded. All those in favour of that? Carried. Thank you. Item 3, declaration of interest. This is the point on the agenda when any member or officer has any connection to any item on the business tonight of which they should declare an interest. Are there any such declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 4 then. This is a requirement to move that we move into public from the public session into the private session in accordance with the Local Government Act to discuss business that is of a confidential nature or a commercial nature. There is items of that nature on the agenda tonight, and I will move the appropriate resolution those be taken in private. Happy with that? That's seconded. Thank you. Petitions. I've not received any petitions. I understand there is a question at item 6 from a member of the public, Ms. Fiona Millen, who is present in person, has 2 minutes to put the question, of which my colleague, Councillor Andrew, will respond. Fiona.
Thank you very much. Good evening, councillors. I hope you can hear me. I'm not used to a microphone. The handout gives you some information to take away. I know you are all familiar with Walsall Arboretum. Indeed, Helen Patterson came in November to celebrate the Green Flag Award for Walsall's Premier Park. The Black Country Plan has identified 18 hectares alongside Walsall Arboretum as appropriate to remove from the green belt and build about 500 houses. Responses to the consultation last summer raised many objections and concerns from many people. Over 2,500 people have signed the local petition, and I know that some have written to you, councillors, and some have written to others. But residents, locals and park visitors are not alone in their concern. Councillor Bird, the leader of this council, is also portfolio holder for housing and land for the West Midlands Combined Authority. He has publicly described his total opposition to building on the Greenbelt. Further, he has contacted ministers of state to inquire about the process should council say no. Councillor Andrews and the West Midlands Mayor, Andy Street, were photographed in June holding placards saying, "Protect our Greenbelt." On Radio WM, Councillor Andrews felt that the council was not powerless in this particular scenario. We seek to fully understand the processes in our efforts to save our green belt alongside Walsall Arboretum. Our question is, does Cabinet have the power to refuse a single aspect of the Black Country Plan in the Walsall Council area? Thank you for your kind attention.
Andrew.
Yes, Walsall Cabinet does have the power to refuse any single aspect of the Black Country Plan. I will be clear, as I was on the radio a number of weeks ago, this is a long process that is nowhere near its conclusion. So prior to the publication of any draft plan, a report is needed at Cabinet. For the Regulation 18 draft plan, Cabinet approved the taking of a consultation which took place last August, September. This summer, an amended draft plan will again go to Cabinet for consideration by members prior to the Regulation 19 consultation, which we expect in August, September. Regulation 19 consultation is to consult on the soundness of the plan as set out in paragraph 35 of the National Planning Policy Framework. Modification to the plan can be made after Regulation 19 by officers before the final version is sent to the Secretary of State. However, there can be another opportunity for members to consider the plan with any modifications first, and this is likely to happen. If following officer modifications reported to Cabinet and full Council, members can choose to omit any single aspect of the plan, Regulation 19, prior to the submission to the Secretary of State. However, the plan must be sound, so any decision making must be on that basis. At the examination in public, planning inspector can make modifications to plan to make it pretty self-explanatory that yes, Cabinet can change any aspect of it, but we have to follow a process during this period.
Perhaps I could just add to that in saying that, yes, as of today, there is a new planning minister. Officers were instructed to make contact with that new planning minister as of today to see whether he is still of a mind to pursue the methodology that was adopted to come to a figure of housing that is required. It is also fair to say that if this council or any of the Black Country authorities were to say no to a piece of land, the power of the inspectorate is that they can impose that on us, whether we like it or not. And in closing, can I just say it's disappointing that people have criticised the consultation process because it was done on a digital basis. Having said that, there were 10,000 leaflets for each ward, which is 20 wards, that's 200,000 leaflets. And I can honestly say every one of my Conservative members delivered those leaflets. Disappointingly, the other opposition did not deliver any in the St Matthews ward in which this particular piece of land resides. So sadly, consultation has not been flawed, as has been suggested to me, but in actual fact has been implemented from the digital process with hard copy leaflets delivered through the doors of all the people in the wards that certainly my people represent. Happy with that? I'm the chairman, you could say what you wish.
Well, I was just going to say that we did distribute as many of the of the paper copies as we possibly could manage, but
like I say, the comments weren't directed at you. They were the elected members who should have been doing their job.
Okay, well, that is very helpful. So although you have a right, there is this issue of being overruled. That's a difficulty.
Well, the last time this was done, which was some years ago now, there were two fields in the Streetley area, which we know now as Sunnybank, and the just over the road into Hardwick Road. They were imposed upon us by the minister because we had taken them out of the plan because, in our view, didn't tick all the boxes that were required. However, the ultimate authority was with the Secretary of State's appointed inspector. And so therefore we now have two estates, Thistledown Close and Sunnybank in the Streatley area, which were in actual fact looking to be reserved as greenfield. But there is a consultation process. As my colleague Andrew has said, it is far from exhausted yet. But I would thank you for your input, thank the people who have taken the trouble to sign that petition, and sincerely hope that the voices of those people will be listened to by the inspector. Indeed, we will then be in a position to have a plan going forward that will satisfy the housing need.
Fingers crossed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, which is the forward plan, which has been published. Can we just move and note that? Thank you. Item 8 then is the first of the financial reports, and I will refer back to notes, which is not something I like doing, but it is quite complicated. And can I add as a precursor, as I do on every occasion, I'm eternally grateful for the members of the finance team, headed up by Deborah Heinsohn, who's here this evening, because without their input, this council would not be in the financial stability that we now see going forward for the next 3 years. The key message is here that pre-COVID-19, the council was in a strong financial position with an ambitious transformation agenda designed to deliver a sustainable council well into the future. I'm pleased to say, in common with all other councils, COVID-19 has severely challenged the council's finances and the resources available to deliver change. The council continues to play an active role in the overall national response to COVID-19, and we've been allocated 76.57 million of funding to date for COVID-19. Of this, 38.44 million relates to 21-22. The council continues to actively support local residents who have had their income affected through the hardship and track and trace government-backed schemes, and businesses directly affected by forced closures, partial closures, or who have had their trade affected by imposed restrictions. Also, residents have also been allocated 5.37 million of support, and businesses have been allocated 150.73 million. This includes the recently announced funding for additional business rate relief of 4.6 million, and phase 4 of the additional restrictions grants, or ARGs as we know them, which is a further 347. And a specific Omicron hospitality and leisure grant of 1.37 million, all of which go to support businesses that are experiencing difficulties because of the Omicron variant. The COVID-19 impact is as follows. Of the 38.44 million grant received, which I referred to earlier, this is to date for 21-22, we currently forecast a spend of 37.36 million, leaving an uncommitted balance of 1,008,000, of which 452,000 relates to the new burdens, 22,000 wellbeing for education, 37,000 for a winter grant, and 300,000 local authority practical support grant. The remaining 235,000 goes from unring-fenced grant to manage any additional emerging pressures as summarised at Appendix 1 in the report. Cabinet have been asked to approve the summary expenditure plans for additional COVID-19 grant funding to date for the 21-22 year, as set out in section 4.8 of the report. This relates to the second round of workforce recruitment and retention for adult social care and adult social care Omicron support fund. With non-COVID-19, we have a revenue forecast overspend of £1,008,000 after use of reserves. This is a marginal improvement of £30,000 to the 1.11 billion overspend position reported to Cabinet in December. There is a high level of confidence that the Council will outturn on budget by the 31st of March 2022. The forecast capital position for 21-22 is currently forecasting a marginal overspend of £15,000 after rephasing of 132 million into the 22-23 financial year, with a request to approve a number of changes to the 21-22 capital programme. And furthermore, performance against an agreed set of financial health indicators, statutory and local prudential indicators, which are forecast to be achieved. Regular updates will be provided to Cabinet as on a continuous basis on the forecast of the financial implications for the Council, along with any recommendations for additional action to be taken to manage the evolving situation. It is this administration's resolve to put more money into our resilient communities model, which has proved extremely successful during the pandemic. And I have to say that we've done a lot with a few people. I think we should be proud of that. And as a result, my credit to all of the people working in the communities, resilient communities model. And I sincerely hope that our strengthening by way of finance and people for 21, 22, 23, I should say, will be seen on the ground, where in actual fact we will be indicating and working with community associations who have proven invaluable during this period of isolation, which we've all had to endure. So I would formally move item 8 in relation to items noted in the report 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, all of which are reproduced in the report at item 8. I formally move that.
Seconded.
Please seconded. Are there any comments or questions, please? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Leader. Quite some big figures are involved in that report. And I know we'll have a second bite to share some of the budgetary pressures, but also some of the service issues that arise from that at the budget setting in February for next year and beyond. But we're often questioned about what is spent and where it's spent and how it's spent and how we're supporting vulnerable members of our community. And some of those figures in that report need sharing more widely in a better way in terms of communicating that message. And I know if you're someone who's vulnerable and you may not feel you benefit from some of that support, I think the figures that are set out in that report show how much money is being invested in supporting more vulnerable members of our community. We also know that some of that resource is directed through resilient communities, through our community organisations to, if you want to, in one sense, it's doubling the pound, because what our communities can offer are the enhanced benefits of the investment that is placed in there and the ongoing enhancements that provides. We'll talk more about that, as I said, in February at budget. But I just wanted to draw people's attention to this report in the sense of massive amounts of money has been repaid back to the city. I know from my own portfolio, if you just look at leisure centres and the, and in places like the arena, some of our cultural assets where pre-pandemic we were breaking even and probably would have gone into a profit-making situation had we not been hit with COVID. And those questions that were asked about being paid money back actually has happened. And without that, we wouldn't be in the situation we were in now, and probably in a far worse situation. So I want to just draw people's attention to that, given the enormity and the complex of that report, but also to pay credit to you, Leader, and to the finance team who work with you. Because you've got to have your eye on the ball with some of these things. As we know through the changes in legislation during COVID, it changed that quick. You could have a decision made 1 minute and you're expected to implement it within 48 hours. And a lot of that happened in Adrian's portfolio as well, around the welfare element, around getting payments to businesses, payments to vulnerable people, whether it's through housing support, COVID support grants, and even now the rebate on energy in terms of that council tax rebate and that £250 loan, if you want to call it that. Plus all the other things that it's still there through the hardship fund that we're experiencing. So as I say, we are doing all we can to support those through this situation, and we'll go on to do that in future. But you're very quick, Leader, to pay tribute to us and other members. It's about time we also recognise your role in that as the leader.
Thank you for that. I think it's a collegiate approach. I've got an excellent cabinet around me, and obviously I don't interfere with your portfolio. Sometimes I might, but with competence, leadership comes with competence, and hopefully we've shown that through this pandemic we all work together to make sure that we do the best for our residents, in particular yourself in Resilient Communities, and of course Steve Craddock in the public health team. That has been a baptism of fire, to be honest. But I think we've all got a part to play here. To say as well, over the years we've taken over 100 million out of the council's budget since 2010, and in many cases I would say to people, have you missed it? And invariably, no. And the reason for that is because we embarked on the journey of what we know as the PROUD programme by working more efficiently and more with 21st and 22nd century coming forward technology. We were forced down the road through the pandemic, but in actual fact, it has proven to be a lesson in disguise in many ways, where we've identified different ways of working and instilling a culture change in Walsall to know that people can work with digital means to enable and push out savings. Because at the end of the day, once you've capitalised and paid for a computer, in many ways it does then save you money. Like the robots from years ago in the car industry, they replaced many people, but that hasn't happened here. What we've done is we've reskilled those people and redesigned their work schedule to enable them to work in other areas so they can exercise and achieve their full potential, not necessarily doing the job they've always done. So I've found that a great challenge, but it's a satisfying challenge, and we've reaped the benefits of that by growing our own from within. And I think that's something else that's come out of this pandemic. So I formally move item 8, as I have done in the items through 1 to 10. So I'll take a vote on that. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. I'm afraid you still stuck with me with the talking stick at item 9, and I will refer back to the notes again. It is quite a complicated issue. No doubt the people out there will say, oh, the council tax going up again. Yes, it's an annual event. And sadly, what people have to understand, the council tax does not provide all of the money to provide and distribute the services that we have to do. Some of those are statutory requirements, such as adult social care and indeed children's services. But for the record, only approximately 57% comes from government grants, and only 20% comes from the council tax that we raise, which funds the services. The rest of it, income, colleague Councillor Perry has referred to tonight, leisure centres, car parking, things like that. But it is only 20% that comes from the council tax, and I think that's something that we need to get that message across to members of the public. The second point is that whilst we are promoting a council tax increase of 2%, there's a further 1% for adult social care, but that equates to a figure of 15 pence a day increase on the properties bands A to C, A to B. And if you include band C, 83.5% of the people are in bands A, B or C throughout the elevation. And when you think that's 15p a day increase, I have to say, I think that's more than good value for money. For those that would disagree, I'm sure, but going back to the actual overall picture with the corporate budget, the budget is the financial representative of the council's plans and supports delivery of the council's priorities and objectives, which again we'll come on to at item 10. But this budget plan is aligned to the 5 areas of priority focus and 10 outcomes in the council plan, as set out as the strategic objectives and aligned with those resources. And before I go into some more detail on the budget at the front of you tonight, our key message on the 2022 to 23 budget are: our budget is balanced for 22-23. We're investing significantly in our frontline services, caring for our young, elderly and vulnerable residents, with total revenue investment of 34.7 million in the year 22-23. And to ensure we continue to invest in priority services, we have identified 18.9 million of efficiency savings and propose a council tax increase of 2.9%, 2.99% in the year 22-23. Meanwhile, we are committed to delivering our transformation programme to improve our customers' experience as they contact us for support and advice. We're investing in our capital infrastructure with additional capital investment of 187 million in 22-23, such as fixing and improving our roads, investing in the council's waste management strategy and recycling initiatives, and investing in Walsall and Bloxbridge Town Centre, and achieve success in levering in significant external funds to support our towns and district centres. We are investing heavily for the forthcoming year, which will see some great changes. Yes, some of that will come with some pain, because when you see improvements, especially in roads and infrastructure, people complain about the traffic jams. But I cannot place on record the major roadworks that you're seeing in the town, certainly in Walsall Town Centre, are not, repeat, not Walsall Council, but they are the Transport for West Midlands project of the A34 Sprint bus. In respect of the report, I would go on to say the council must, by law, to balance budget, and our core government grant, known as our settlement, does not provide us with sufficient funding to cover all of our cost pressures. Therefore, we have to identify savings or increase our income. Only two ways to balance the books: more money or less overhead. We've identified a package of 18.9 million of savings to be delivered through our Proud Transformation Programme in the year 22-23. This is an organisational change which is aimed at improving our customer and staff experiences by implementing new, more efficient and customer-focused ways of working. This in turn will drive out efficiencies and savings, and a further indicative saving of 6.9 million has been identified for the year 23-24 and 1.15 million for 24-25, whilst noting that we need to find a further 26 million over the period of 25-26, which is expected to be achieved following ongoing service transformation activity. All of these figures are predicated on our knowledge of what the government might give us as grants, which at this point in time, one could argue is speculation. But we can only base our figures on what we know rather than what we think. The level of saving alone, despite being significant in value, will not deliver a balanced budget given the unprecedented pressures councils are currently facing. Therefore, I propose council tax increase of 2.99% for 22-23 within the limit set by government referendum limits. As I've said earlier, this includes a general council threshold of 2%, with 1% going to adult social care. So this equates to a Band D council tax of 1,927.84, and to repeat the figure, this will be a 15p a day increase for Band D households, or 10p a day if you're in Band A. Having said that, despite the savings and the financial challenges currently faced by the council, we've been able to make a significant revenue investment into frontline services. It's all right for some people to say, well, you're cutting. Well, here's the examples of where we're investing: 34.7 million in 22-23 and a further 51 million over the following 3 years. This money will fund increases in demand and cost pressures with adult social care and children's services, with reductions in grants and shortfalls in income, ongoing costs and income pressures in relation to COVID-19, and our commitment to the delivery of the Proud Transformation Programme. Our gross expenditure for 22-23 is 704 million. I repeat by saying only 20% of that comes from council tax, with 57% approximately coming from government grant. As a result of the above, we will set a balanced budget, and we have protected our frontline services as much as possible in 22-23. We'll also be spending £8 million on creating an environment where businesses invest and everyone who wants a job can access one. 233 million on education, training and skills to enable our children and adults to fulfil their personal development. A further 210 million on people to deliver quality of life that they feel they should have and belong within the Walsall conurbation. £21 million will go on to helping people live a healthy and be encouraged to get support when they need it. £4 million to support children to thrive emotionally, physically, mentally, and feel they are achieving their potential. And furthermore, most importantly, feel safe. The streets out here, and indeed wider afield, seem to be alive with knives and everything else that we hear on the news every day. There is no bravery in carrying a knife. There is no position in life for you to go and stab somebody and ruin your own life and those of the families of the children that are affected. My message to our youngsters out is, we are here and trying to keep you safe. Please don't scupper that by putting a knife in your pocket, which then you might feel brave to use, but in actual fact might put life for the rest of it. We're also spending £59 million on supporting children to grow up in connected communities and feel safe everywhere. £5 million on supporting housing needs, and £55 million to ensure that people are proud of their towns, districts and communities. We've set out a total capital investment of £187 million for 22-23 and a further £172 million the following 3 years. So over £359 million of capital investment over the next 4 years, and for 22-23, £80 million of council funded schemes. 176 million over 4 years. 107 million will be externally funded, which equates to 183 million over that 4-year period, including support for the wider Black Country role as an accountable body for growth funds and the Land and Property Investment Fund. Schemes included in the draft capital programme are deemed necessary to support our council plan priorities, including addressing health and safety and infrastructure requirements. Full details by scheme are provided within the appendices of the budget. We have also set out the council's updated capital investment strategy with a flexible use of capital receipts strategy, the annual treasury management, that sometimes is a mystery to me, and investment strategy and treasury management policies, all of which have been updated to reflect our refreshed council plan priorities. Roughly what that means is, with the fall in interest rates, we are not securing the interest on any monies or investments that we have had over many years, but in actual fact have seen a decline in that income, and therefore treasury management needs to make sure that we make our best investments to enable us to carry out our commitments in the budget you have this evening. The capital investment strategy considers the funding implications of the capital programme and sets out how capital investment will play its part in delivering the ambitious long-term strategic objectives of this council. Our risk is managed and the implications for future financial stability. The Treasury Management Investment Strategy and Treasury Management Policies set out how cash flow is adequately planned, with cash being available when it is needed, and how investments and borrowings are to be organised and managed. It also sets the council's borrowing limits and the arrangements in place to fund the council's approved capital plans, whilst maintaining risk element to the council. Cabinet has been asked to recommend to approve the recommendations set out and refer this on to council for support. Yes, there are a lot of figures in there. Yes, there's a lot of a plan. Strategically, the PROUD programme has brought us to a stage where every pound we invested, we made it clear to our partners we wanted to see a £3 return. But whilst that has been less than £3 because of the effects of the pandemic, I think we should be proud of the fact that many, many savings and efficiencies have come out of the work of working with PwC. Yes, it was a brave step to take that journey, but now looking back, it was the right thing to do. I often say, where Walsall lead, others follow. I sincerely hope that the councils will see the success of the finances in Walsall Council to enable them to look inwardly to see what they can learn from the success that we've had. Now, I commend that to you as members, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Silence, even better. Right, then I would formally move the recommendations at item 9, which is reproduced for the Cabinet members at the end of the three note, which I've said, and with recommendation as set out in the report that this be agreed and move on to Council for support. Formally move that.
Formally second it.
Seconded. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. You'll be pleased to know that the last report I've got with the talking stick is item 10. And this is something we've now renamed the corporate plan. It is now the council plan. When people read corporate plan, they think it is the corporate entity of the council, that is to say, the officer structure. No, it isn't. This is the policy that we as politicians, if we are such, and certainly elected members, lay before our office to say, this is what we want to do. And this is how we're going to do it. Or should I say, they come back and say, this is how we can do it. In doing so, we have now come forward with a plan which gives you our measures of success. And item 10 reports and presents the Council's plan for 22-25, which articulates the strategic direction of the Council and how it measures its success. It was informed by an updated joint strategic needs analysis, community safety needs assessment, and the local economic needs assessment. The plan sets out the Council's achievements, in particular during the period of the pandemic and lockdown, and its plans and priorities for the next 3 years, with refreshed markers of success to demonstrate the transparency and accountability and monitor performance. Performance is only good if you monitor it and make sure you know when it's slipping. That is the purpose of this. Gradually, we're becoming aware of the significant impact that COVID-19 pandemic has had in global, national and local communities, in particular, the widening of inequalities, some of which have been noted and others which have been predicted. It's fair to say, and I can't stress this enough, COVID has not gone away. Living with COVID going forward is the message that this council must embed within any policy and any strategy that we have put in place. As this pandemic remains ongoing, and we continue to learn how to live with it and its impact, the council has continued to work on its plan to reduce those inequalities and work with our communities and businesses to maximise potential through its strong relationships and partnerships, both internally and with external agencies. What I would say at this point is that this administration made it clear to the officer structure that the Walsall pound, wherever possible, must be spent in Walsall. And as a result, if we, as we have, worked with government funding, a government grant to keep those businesses alive during the pandemic, it is only right and proper that we should, wherever possible within the law, provide our Walsall pound and our contracts to Walsall businesses to enable them to succeed and recover from the losses and indeed the hardship that they've seen through the last 2 years. The plan highlights council's new ways of working and is focused on strengthening partnerships and building stronger relationships with its communities and businesses. Furthermore, the demographics, which are shown on page 3 of our Walsall, are being worked on and will be presented in a format that will introduce the borough, for example, population breakdown, number of businesses, number of schools, just some of the figures that we're looking at. The financial data on page 11, which will present our summary of corporate revenue budget for 22-25 by outcome, will be populated following Cabinet's agreement tonight. Cabinet is recommended to support the 22-25 Our Council plan as appended to the report, refer the plan amended as mentioned to Council for approval, and agree that the final design of the document be agreed with the Chief Executive in consultation with myself as the leader of this Council. I would formally move item 10, items 1, 2 and 3.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, please? No? It's a strategy we've agreed over many, many months. I sincerely hope that we will see those markers of success being increased in number as we pursue our journey through that plan. I would formally move the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you very much. It's carried. Move on then to something dear to my colleague's heart, is item 11, the Willenhall Framework Plan. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Leader. I'll move the recommendations as set out with the LB's recommendations in the private sector, which are commercially
Second that.
sensitive. This is the next step on the journey of regenerating Willen Hall through the Willen Hall master plan. It's been the priority, one of the priorities of this administration, to tackle all the derelict buildings and sites in Willen Hall that can actually deliver several hundred houses, residential units for the area, and tackle the unsightly derelict sites and buildings in the area that are not only bringing the area down, but also costing this council a lot of money in terms of making sure that they are secure and action is taken against owners. This is really about looking for a positive future, looking at the positive future of Willen Hall, raising the aspiration of the town. The town's got a very proud past, very proud independent past, with lockmaking industry and its own council. But sadly, it hasn't had the uplift that other parts of this borough has. We are determined through this master plan to make sure that the people of Willen Hall aren't ignored and that Willen Hall gets its fair share, and we build back better in Willen Hall and tackle all these derelict buildings by taking on some of the owners who simply won't work with this council or developers. We want to try and take the risk out of people coming to Willen Hall to invest, and that's what we will do. The catalyst clearly for this strategy has been the delivery by the Mayor of the West Midlands of Willen Hall railway station, and that will open up new opportunities, not only for the people of Willen Hall, but for people to invest in the town and have a good focus on the future of Willen Hall. I so move.
Well, I can do that. I think the message is clear that this council will no longer tolerate those derelict sites that we've seen, the blight towns and centres across Walsall conurbation, and indeed wider afield. But our concentration is with Walsall, and we will, wherever we need to, use compulsory purchase powers to make sure that we make things happen. So I'm grateful to receive that, and the final decision will be made in the private session because there are some commercially confidential issues in that. So then I'll move on to item 12. Again, Councillor Andrews, the contractor procurement strategy and the connected gateway project.
Thank you, Leader. I'll move the recommendations.
Second that, and
After
item 2.
Can I be very clear, make this very clear, that the very misleading information that was in the press that this administration, this council, spending 36 million quid on Sadler Centre, wrong. Simply wrong and misleading. The Connected Gateway project involves enhancing the railway station and the gateway into Walsall from the railway, rail concourse and associated street works around the bus station. It will involve some of the Sadler Centre, but this is really to have the ambition, the focus on the future for Walsall, connecting those two hubs of transport and connectivity that are the lifeblood of this town, to get people into the town. And when you arrive in Walsall, either by bus or by train, first of all, you know you're in Walsall, and it's a welcoming place that has ambition, and it's a safe place for people to work, live and shop. And this will be a game-changing project for Walsall, along with the Towns Fund and along with the Future High Streets Fund, for £1 million being delivered by this administration from the government to really regenerate Walsall Town Centre.
Thank you, Adrian. I think it's also right to say that unlike some towns and cities, we welcome people who've got cars. The best shopping trolley's got a 2-litre engine. And as a result, we would say that we need to look at how we can assist our residents in obtaining access to the centre parts of towns and districts. Because if we can do that, then hopefully we will see some resurgence in the retail sector. We're seeing a little bit of green shoots at the moment, but the retail sector has got a long way to go. And I think what we have to do, and that's what this master plan is doing, it's saying why you have a need to go to the town centre. It has to be a destination. And this will be a reason to go. And as a result, make it an enjoyable experience. One of the other things that we are looking at is something that we may seem a bit trite, but toilets in town centres and district centres are important. And as a result, the retail sector used to fill that gap. To have that retail sector there being there anymore, then that's something else that this plan will address. It is ambitious, but you know, if you don't shoot for the stars, then you never reach the moon. So as a result, I sincerely hope that we will get full backing from the whole of the council, and that we will see that we can rescue what was a difficult decision of this council, or desperate decision probably, to purchase a shopping centre, which now, unfortunately, it is left for this administration to pick it up and see what we can do with the strategic development that our friend, my colleague, Councillor Andrews, just referred to. So, for Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Leader. And yes, it is an ambitious plan, and it's one that we all have to sign up to. We are going to be seeing a lot of buzz this year around the Commonwealth, quite rightly, in terms of the Commonwealth Games. And to coin a phrase around baton bearing, we are the baton bearers for the future generations of this town. And if we can't be ambitious about that, then what are we here for? But the reason I wanted to speak, it was only because Councillor Andrew referred to feeling safe. And we know that that is one of the biggest obstacles for people coming into not just our town centre here in Walsall, but all our district centres or any local centre. It can be the biggest barrier for people entering, feeling safe and using their community in the way that we would hope and encourage. And we know that is a particular challenge for us here in Walsall. And we could talk lots and lots about different anecdotes we've all got around what's currently going on in our communities. And there is some desperation there. I see that and I hear it, and I think we know some of the issues that are particularly centering around Walsall Town Centre. But I wanted just to use this opportunity to say we are doing what we can with our police partners. There are things we have control over. There are other things we don't. Policing is one of them. It is in the realms of the Police and Crime Commissioner, who is, despite any politicking around this subject, he gets the investment and chooses how he sees fit to spend that money on policing. And we know that to one extent, the hands are tied of our Chief Superintendent when he hasn't got the resources to do what he needs to do. And you know, in support of Superintendent Phil Dolby, we know he's a man that is focused on community safety and policing in the right way. And we need to do all we can to shake the shackles of the PCC to put some of that resource back into Walsall Town Centre from a policing perspective, but not just in the town centre, beyond that, in all of some of the wards that we represent that are currently seeing a rise, particularly in burglaries, car thefts, and more serious offences. I just wanted to put that marker down that we hear what our community is telling us, and actually we probably sympathise and empathise with some of the things they are saying, but it isn't always within our gift. We put CCTV in place, we can work with our partners to address some of these issues, but policing has to be the number one priority for us if we're to feel safe in our town district centres.
I have to say, you allude to Chief Superintendent Phil Dolby. He has been one of the greatest assets we've seen coming into Walsall. He believes in community. He's a community copper, and as a result, he's doing a great job in a very short space of time. We've seen a great difference with the communication and the partnership working that he's brought to the town. I think the other issue is we have to call upon many of the licensed premises to have an engagement with this council and indeed with the police. And we've got to do everything possible to take that crime off the street, which is normally alcohol fueled. I used to say Walsall closes at 5 o'clock at night. Sometimes now I wish it did, because the measure of violence we're seeing, throughout this town centre is absolutely appalling. And the quicker we can get to the heart and the nub of that, working with the police and the local businesses, then the quicker we'll see a safe town centre. So I would formally accept that we've moved that recommendation. And I'll take a vote on that. All those in favour? It's agreed. Moving on then to item 13, which is the Black Country Framework Contract for minor works. Councillor Andrew. Seconded. That's items 1 and 2.
The report seeks the approval to utilise the framework which has been developed and procured on behalf of and in conjunction with the Black Country authorities, the City Council and Transport for West Midlands. Framework will supplement the council's highway infrastructure services with tarmac. It will provide an alternative delivery mechanism for highways, transport and public realm schemes, particularly when the nature of the work is better suited to an alternative contractor. Additionally, access to the framework will facilitate market testing, wider supply chain engagement, drive both performance and best value. Joining the framework that will facilitate the appointment of contractors oftentimes without the need for lengthy and costly procedures. So I hope that the Cabinet will approve the course of action.
That's moved and seconded. All those in favour of that? Carried, thank you. Moving on to item 14 then. This is a split report, part in public, part in private, and also an additional recommendation that progress report be submitted to the Scrutiny Overview Committee after 12 months following the commencement of the contract. Councillor Andrew, Domestic Abuse Service Contract.
Thank you, Leader. This is a joint report, but also affects Councillor Pedley and Councillor Perry as well in their portfolios. This is very much something, very serious issue that we need to support in terms of supporting very, very vulnerable people who are in danger, and that will be the course of action that we take in terms of working with partners to make sure that the victims of domestic abuse are looked after in the most effective way possible, but not with a one-size-fits-all. We ensure to deliver our new duties as outlined in the Domestic Abuse Act 2021, which requires a commissioning of efficient and effective safe accommodation to victims of abuse, which we will be looking to improve, change, effective support to victims of children. At that point, I will hand over to Councillor Will.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. So I'm sure it'll come as no surprise domestic abuse is a big issue in children's services. Domestic abuse is recognised as adverse childhood experience, ACEs, and research tells us that children experiencing these kinds of trauma are at an increased risk to develop chronic health problems, mental illness, substance use problems in adulthood. ACEs can also negatively impact education, job opportunities and earning potential. Having effective services to prevent and support children who have experienced domestic abuse is really vital. In Walsall, 1,995 children were referred to children's services during 2021 as a result of experiencing domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is one of our top 3 demands for social care intervention at 37.2%. We therefore welcome the Domestic Abuse Act, which became law on the 29th of April last year, recognising children as victims of domestic abuse for the first time and provided us with an opportunity to strengthen our support to children in Walsall. This report and the recommendations to award the contracts is a first step in strengthening our support through the alignment of key domestic abuse services by creating a single pathway for all victims and their children. Securing these services together gives us the opportunity to align them with the locality model and our best practice family safeguarding model. Thank you.
Okay, any comments or questions on that? Are you happy with that then? Move the recommendations as set out, and the decision will go into the private session. 14. Moved on then to item 15, something very dear to my heart. Councillor Perry, this is fly tipping and littering enforcement.
Thank you, Leader. Well, there's lots of things I want to say on this subject, but I'll try and keep it short. Fly tippers, litter louts. We'd like to think the hidden enemy, but they're not. And their destruction and the impact that they leave in our communities is very real. What this report does, it sets out the progress that we've made since 2016 as we started to grasp this issue. More importantly, some of the changes we've made to try and utilise all resources we have at our disposal to effect. And of course, we could do more. So if this was a school report, I'd be saying to you, great progress, could do more. And that's that's the gist of this report has set out. It talks about some of the tools at our disposal and the legislation we operate in. And given the geographical spread of fly tipping as well as littering, you can see how cumbersome and difficult it can be for our officers. I like to think that we operate what I call a flee and find approach. They may flee, but we will seek and we will find. And we are getting stronger at that. One of the changes that we have made, particularly, is in the use of our operatives who work in CCTV. So previously, fixed penalty notice would have had to have gone through quite an elongated bureaucratic process, not only just to gain evidence, but to see who the fly tipper may or may not have been, whether in the vehicle, whether not in the vehicle, and the PACE process and so forth could get quite complicated, and which means by the time that we've actually got a result into court, so often more than not, they follow 5-10 times. Our CCTV operatives are now able to issue fixed penalty notices where the evidence is clear, i.e. vehicle numbers and so forth, and you're seeing that reflected in our report. The use of most wanted continues. Again, it's something that we want to build on. We're going to relaunch that with an expanded offer for our communities to come forward and submit evidence as well as photographic evidence so that we can issue those fines. And often the most wanted stuff is the stuff that gets to court. It gets those prosecutions and it gets that recognition. There is, of course, a reward, as pointed out earlier, of £500 for people who come forward, even if it's anonymous, and it leads to a successful prosecution. So there's lots we're trialling. The use of CCTV, of course, is always something that we try to encourage. And residential CCTV is also as important. So we have evidence, as you will see on page 6, where residents did evidence from their own CCTV of fly tipping, which we've been able to follow through and issue successful FPNs. And actually, the rate of people paying those FPNs once issued, those fixed penalty notices, is quite high. Now, this is a battle, and I don't like to talk about war and fighting a battle in the physical sense, but this is a battle that we're all determined to win. And we can only do that if we've got the best strategies and the best people on board helping us fight in that battle. Some of those battles we will win, some we will lose. But in the bigger picture, we're determined to push forward. And helping us are our litter heroes, who are part of our army, in a sense. So we've got our staff who work in clean and green and the fly tippers, who go and remove the fly tipper when it's taken place. We have our litter heroes as well, that army of volunteers. And some of us in this room are equally part of that process. We are litter heroes. We will not do it because we're local councillors. We do it because we're proud of the communities we represent and we're proud of the environment that we're happy to live and work in. But we've got hundreds signed up as our litter heroes. Those volunteers, week in, week out. You see the stuff on Facebook, don't you? The amount of bags they collect on a day-by-day basis. And it must be disheartening sometimes that they're going back to the same areas to pick up where they've only probably litter picked 2, 3, 4, 5 days. I do 2 roads in my ward probably every other week. Blackie Lane, we've got a litter here and there. She does predominantly most of that, and Goscott Lane. And I can guarantee I always look back with pride and think, I've done a great job there, and within it is back again, and I'm doing the same route in terms of picking up that litter. So you can see the battle that we're actually faced with. Page 6 also refers to some of the success stories. Ash Tree Road, I'm going to take the opportunity again to reference my own ward there. That is something that local residents were raising continually about a certain business and connected litter that is associated with that business. We started using CCTV to best effect, as well as our the residents reporting. And as you can see, we've issued 8 FPNs. 7 of those 8 have actually been paid, and we will do more of that as we move forward. Leader, you've often talked about waste carriers, and we also know that's a bigger challenge for us, and Councillor Butler will know as well, in certain parts of the borough, it's actual, not household waste that's being tipped, it's waste removal from properties that have been demolished or refurbished and rubble and all sorts of things. And legitimate waste carriers will have a permit, will have a licence, and actually those are the ones we ought to be publicising on our websites and in to our communities, a bit like we do to vulnerable residents. Use this trader because they've got relevant requisites there. However, there are some who will actually say, I'll remove that for you for 50 quid, and then the poor householder thinks, great, it's out my way, but then it gets dumped down the lane. And the law now allows us to go back to the person where that waste was from to seek to prosecute. And it's up to them then to just, to prove that they weren't involved in that. And the other thing that's linked to this battle around fly tipping and waste carriers, we have evidence where on one occasion a fly tip took place and it was linked to a vehicle that was a mobility vehicle. And on occasions we've also seen vehicle evidence used in fly tipping that have had blue badges. So we've we've asked our officers to write to the Minister. It's something that we'll put our name to, suggesting that this must be happening national. It can't just be here in Warsaw, happening everywhere. If a vehicle associated with a fly tip is a mobility vehicle, or it is used by someone who has a blue badge for mobility issues, that should be rescinded. At the moment, we're not doing that because the law doesn't necessarily allow it. But why? You're using your vehicle illicitly and you're claiming you have mobility issues, yet you see fit to go down somewhere, a lane usually, sometimes not even a lane, in more visible location, and fly tip. No is our answer to that. And we are writing to the Minister to say that's another gap in the law that we could close that help us in this battle against fly tipping. So I think you get the general gist of what that report is setting out. It is progress well made. There is more that we can do. There is more that we will do. And as we strengthen our remit around the contract that we have with the enforcement team, particularly the Kingdom contract, we'll be looking to reconfigure how they operate. So they are also getting involved in some of the areas where fly tipping is more. But the message is, we don't do it. It don't come from the skies. I've heard you say that many times, Leader. It is people, unfortunately, who live and work in this borough. It might be a minority, but actually, given the amount of litter we see in our streets, it's actually a growing majority.
Thank you, Councillor. You're right, Gary. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it is the scourge of Warsaw with fly tippers who think it's right that they can go and dump the rubbish. Furthermore, when we clear it away, they think that's the place to dump their rubbish, so we'll take it away for free. I'll just take Councillor Tim Wilson first. Tim.
Thank you, Leader. So I want to endorse this report and thank Councillor Perry for it. And I want to also thank him and his team, quite a small team with a mammoth task. The ward I represent is probably one of the worst in the borough. So I want to give credit also to Clean and Green because they're swift at responding to the fly tipping. It's unfortunate that it's repeat fly tipping, so the enforcement is welcomed. And lastly, we just need to stop this fly. One way or another, we need to stop it. It's getting ridiculous and it's costing the taxpayer in Warsaw. So obviously, I'll be, support the recommendations as set out.
Thanks, Oliver.
Thank you, Leader.
Sorry.
No, yeah, he's gone. Councillor Butler, yeah. Thank you, Leader. Just a few items I'd like to expand on this report. Actually, if you look over the period 2017 to 2021, the number of fly tips has actually decreased from just under 400 a month to 250. So that's a 37.5% reduction in ballpark figures. We've done a lot of stuff on the carrot side of the house. as I call it. The HWRC's open 7 days a week. Bulky collections free for £10, and we're on signage. So if we take the military analogy, we've halted the advance and reversed it to some extent. Now we're getting air support, which is what Gary is delivering to really crack on with. I'd like to take the opportunity also to thank Paul Gordon for the work he's done on this. He comes to my portfolio through briefings, and I'm always encouraging him in forthright terms to tackle this issue. And I think from what we've seen in the report that he's taken on board those comments, and we're going in the right direction. If you turn to page 407, you can see the number of measures further planned under 4.29. So anyone who's got that report, have a look at that. But you can clearly see this is going forward. I'd also finally like to thank the volunteers for everything they do. They are eyes and ears. And I know they will welcome these measures to see what's going forward. I also like to highlight to members what we're doing, and also to residents that it's clearly obvious we're taking this matter seriously. So thank you very much for that.
I think I'll reinforce the message that Gary has given tonight, in as much that the change in legislation will mean we have more powers to go back to the originator of that waste. So I say to the members of the public, if it is you and we find any link, whether that be an address or an envelope, we will come and knock on your door. You will get that fine. And if needs be, if we find the vehicles that have done it, we'll take that vehicle away. We will crush that vehicle. And as far as I am aware, as it's a criminal offence, if we can imprison people for this, then I would be the advocate for saying, yes, we should do that. It was a very interesting case where we caught a gentleman who was fly tipping for the 3rd time. We crushed his vehicle and he went to prison. And good for us, because, and believe it or not, that individual lived opposite the Friars Road tip. It was just absolutely appalling. And as a result, I say to the members of the public, we will find you and we will fine you. And wherever possible, that's the message we have to see raw and loud at every opportunity and every flight of an individual. And we will publish those people's names on our website. And there is still a reward offered of £500 for somebody who reports a fly tipper that leads to a successful prosecution. Councillor Perry. Sorry, Councillor Pedley.
Thank you, Leader. Just wanted to echo my thoughts as well. Thanks, Councillor Perry, for the report, especially around the resilient communities model and those volunteers who are out there tirelessly picking up this litter. On a smaller note, about litter, it crosses over into all our portfolios. I'm old enough to remember the Keep Britain Tidy campaign that was endorsed through schools. So we need to be doing our education through the schools. From adult social care, it is not acceptable that domiciliary care workers are disposing of PPE out of windows when they're delivering their service, that I find on a regular basis, masks, gloves, aprons rolled up in a ball and flung out a window. It's not acceptable. We'll be doing our part from portfolio holders to endorse that and work with providers. And it's not acceptable that volunteers are out there picking that up during a pandemic. So it spreads across all our portfolios, from educating children through, like I say, Keep Britain Tidy campaigns, doing our bit to keep local, and also down to our providers and all aspects of community. But thank you again to the volunteers and, of course, Clean and Green operatives for doing their part.
You make a very forceful point, and it is becoming endemic through the pandemic. It's become endemic for people to think it's right and proper to come out of a shop and throw their mask on the floor where somebody else has got to pick it up. Well, that is only one of the parts that I think we should raise awareness of. Feeding the pigeons is littering. And although I will fall foul of the people who love pigeons, I don't take too kindly when that mess that is all over the town is brought about by people who constantly feed the pigeons. I'm sorry, I had a case only recently where a PCN was issued against somebody, and there was hell to pay. Oh no, it's terrible, we were only feeding the pigeons. No, you were not only creating a problem by throwing stuff on the floor, you were exacerbating the problem with the stuff that pigeons leave behind all over the windows, cars, trees, especially over my car, which is regularly parked on the forecourt here. But having said that, it is a serious note. People have got to understand the extent to which that causes great difficulty. This council alone spends thousands and thousands of pounds picking up dead pigeons that have fallen or through whatever reason into the roofs and the gutterings of this building alone. So the message has to be, if you are littering, be expected to get a fine. There's nothing more annoying than seeing a parent walking down the road with a child, throwing litter on the floor, and that child grows up thinking that's acceptable behaviour. Well, I'm sorry, it's not. The only piece of paper that they are willing to have will be that fine. And I hope they will put it in their pocket rather than throw it in the bin and pay it, because with that fine, it's paper money or plastic money now that you'll be taking out of your pocket to substantiate the cause of getting the message across. I sincerely hope that we will see, even if it's on a voluntary basis, waste carriers displaying a plate saying, I am a licensed carrier, and having the number and the Walsall crest, like all of our taxi drivers have to show that they are a licensed operator. So I welcome the report, and everybody else is involved in making sure that our streets are kept clean and green. And I have to say, I go to Oliver, who's done an exceptional job in sometimes being hands-on. There's not many portfolio holders I know that go out and assist our operators cleaning up the mess that have been left on the roadside by some people who think it's right and proper that they can do that. So well done you, Oliver. Okay, move that then. All those in favour? Carried, thank you very much. Moving on to item 16, which is the Green Spaces Strategy, which comes over to you, Oliver.
Thank you, Leader. The headline point is here is we're investing 1.64 million on new play equipment and outdoor gyms all across Walsall at 19 different sites. This breaks down 1.04 million on play equipment, 360,000 on outdoor gyms with a 244,000 contingency. Of this expenditure, 299,000 comes from Section 106 money that we've freed up. £340,000 is from external funding, and the council itself is committing 1.075 million of council capital. So where are these 19 sites? The 6 outdoor gyms will be located at Plett Park, Pleck, Holland Park, Brown Hills, King George V Playing Fields, Bloxwich West, Walsall Arboretum Paddock, Pelsall Middle Common, Pelsall, and Aldridge Airport, Aldridge Central. With regard to the 13 play areas, these will be located at Reeswood Park, Birch Hills, Leamore, Curtin Drive, Darlaston South, George Rose Park, Darlaston South, Bentley West, Bentley and Darlaston North, Poplar Avenue, Bentley and Darlaston North, Oldswater Road, Willenhorn North, the Lee, Blakenall, Swannies Field, Blakenall, Leamore Park, Blakenall, Pelsall Nest Common, Pelsall, Shire Oak Park, Aldridge North and Walsall Wood, and Bradbury Park Junior, Brown Hills. The COVID pandemic highlighted the need to take more exercise in order to improve health and well-being across the borough. By providing these gyms and upgraded play areas, I hope that this investment will help toward encouraging our residents to be healthy and active. It was one of our commitments as an administration to upgrade and improve the provision of play equipment in our parks and green spaces. Therefore, I hope my colleagues will welcome these proposals, and I move a report as set out in 3.1 and 3.2. In particular, I would highlight the consultation we will carry out with stakeholders, users, residents, ward members, as recommended under 3.2. Thank you, Leader.
Well, that's a great news story. And again, it just shows another investment in health and well-being of people and indeed places. Some of the equipment that's been replaced is many years old, and in some cases could possibly be termed as dangerous, although it's inspected on a regular basis. One of the other things which I missed at the last report is to advise people on clean and green is that some of the land does not belong to this council. Invariably, a lot of the land belongs to Walsall Housing Group, but we are perceived to be the people who clean it up. I have taken that up with WHG and really hope that we'll see some change there. But this is a good news story. It's something that always is under the radar, and I think the importance of communication with the local ward members will perhaps bring forward ideas that may improve the offer that we've got in this report tonight. We're fully moving that, and I'll second it. All those in favour of that? Cleared, carried, sorry, thank you very much. Moving on then to item 17, which is the school admission arrangement scheme, which Councillor Toe.
Thank you, Leader. Walsall Council has a statutory duty to offer a school place to all Walsall resident children and to determine all school admission arrangements. This report set out the proposed scheme for coordinated secondary and primary admissions and mid-year admissions for the 2023-24 academic year, and the proposed admission arrangements for primary, community and voluntary control schools for that academic year. As the admission authority, Walsall Council has a statutory duty to determine the proposed admission arrangements for its community and voluntary control schools. Walsall Council is not, though, the admission authority for any of the secondary schools, primary academies or voluntary aided primary schools in the borough. Therefore, they are required to determine their own admission arrangements for the 2023-24 academic year. Admission authorities were statutorily required to complete consultation on any changes to their proposed admission arrangements for the 2023-24 school year by the 31st of January 2022 and to finalise these by the 28th of February 2022. As Walsall Council was not proposing to make any changes to the arrangement that were previously determined for the 2022-23 academic year, there was no requirement for the local authority to consult on the proposed arrangements for the 2023-24 academic year prior to being presented to Cabinet for determination. That said, I would ask our Cabinet to approve recommendations 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3 of the report. Thank you, Leader.
Second that. All those in favour of that? Clearly carried. Thank you, Councillor Toe. Moving on then to items 18 and 19, which are regarding contract, which are both under the auspices of my colleague, Councillor Statham. So, Councillor Statham, item 18.
Thank you, Leader. I move to defer the building maintenance contract to the March Cabinet. The existing contract will continue to cover the deferral period, so there's no effect on the contract, but just for further investigation.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to defer that. Yes, that's good. That's carried. Moving on to item 19 then, which is the mechanical and electrical service contract.
Okay, thank you, Leader. The report seeks to delegate to award the contract for mechanical and electrical services for council-owned and occupied buildings. I formally move the recommendations as set out in the report at 3.1, 3.2, namely that Cabinet delegate authority to the Interim Executive Director, Resource and Transformation, to award a contract to the successful bidder to deliver the mechanical and electrical service and mechanical contract from the 1st of April 2022 for a 3-year period to the 31st of March 2025, and to extend the said contract for up to 24 months if required. The estimated contract value will be of the order of circa 700,000 per annum. And at 3.2, the Cabinet delegate authority to the Interim Executive Director for Resources and Transformation to enter into the contract and subsequently authorise the sealing, signing or variation of any deeds, contracts or other related documents for such services, including the optional extension periods, the outcome of the tender evaluation to be reported back to Cabinet at the earliest opportunity following the completion of the tender process.
Formally second that. Any questions or comments? Move the vote then. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 20, and can I thank officers for bringing this report at a late stage, because I instructed it to come here, and I'll ask my colleague Councillor Statham to address this, which is a very important part of our council moving forward.
Thank you, Leader. Customer focused ways of working is the update. The report sets out the new ways of council working as reset post the COVID pandemic. COVID-19 has been the catalyst that has driven innovation, adaptation and transformation of service delivery over the past 2 years. The foresight to invest in digital technology was a bold decision and has proven to be a well thought out investment. COVID has not gone away. Case rates in Walsall remain high. We do operate differently now. The report gives a detailed update on the Council's customer-focused ways of working as we move out of the strict pandemic constraints. It clarifies and reinforces the blended working position adopted by both Personnel Committee and Cabinet in 2021. I would like to place on record thanks to all staff for their flexibility, adaptation to remote working and achievements, commitment to providing and maintaining essential services to the residents of Walsall over the past 2 years. It's noteworthy that many staff continue to work within local communities as they have always done. It is also not just about office-based staff. The new ways of working have proven more efficient, productive and increased both staff and customer satisfaction ratings. The Council House and Civic Centre are open for staff to use when they need to be present for work purposes. There is a non-exhaustive list of reasons why people should attend work at 4.4 of the report. Also cites examples of such circumstances. The report is predicated on work is what you do and not where you do it. The focus remains on delivering value for money, positive outcome for Walsall residents. The expectation is managers manage by what people are doing, what outputs they are delivering, what difference they are making, not whether they are present at a desk in a building. The expectation is the new CRM system will enhance and support residents to improve services to customers. I formally move the recommendation as set at 3.1 to now report.
I second that, and I'm grateful for the Chief Exec and HR pulling this report together in short order. Whilst we'll be discussing this through the Cabinet CMT structure, what we have now is the definitive way of moving forward. You're quite right that obviously we now have been, whether we like it or not, pushed into a digital age. If we'd have been requiring to do that in the normal circumstances, it would probably taken between 5 and 10 years. But we managed to do that in 4 or 5 months. Yes, there is a mixture of blended working now, and there is opportunities where people can be more productive by working from home, but conversely, it's also the manager to manage the allocation of people who do have to come into the building and have contact with both residents and elected members. So as a result, I think it is important that we see this as the first step forward to working with COVID around us. It hasn't gone away, as we've heard many times before. And for those who believe it has, it is wrong. Yes, the Prime Minister did say that no longer do you have to work from home, but it does give the opportunity of that flexibility. There are some departments that could perhaps give an example. If there were 10 people in there, the manager could turn around and say, right, we'll have 5 in this week, and then we'll rotate the number of people that we've got over the next week and going forward. But tasks can be then given to people who are working from home, and it is measurable. And I think that's the part, that people know that their job is being done, and the way people work has changed, I think, forever. Gary, you were indicating?
Yes, sorry, Leader, I pressed a bit too early then. I just want to endorse the report, really, because I think I've said it a few times now that I remember the time when we sat around here. We looked at new ways of working. We talked about investment in technology to help us do that, getting people more agile as a workforce. We get that, and then there's still some reluctance to accept that is the real world. And if anything, COVID actually advanced our way of doing things in a way that we couldn't have imagined before. And actually some of that making around it changed as well, because you were able to make quick decisions to get the job done. We know one size doesn't fit all. And for the workforce of today, and probably even more so in the future, we're going to have to adapt to that, because there will be that combination of flexible working to suit those who've got family commitments, carer commitments, we must recognise as well is important here, but also then those who are not physically able sometimes to get into a location and yet should not be denied the right to work because they can't get to a base. But actually, if we can provide them with the support and the kit they need, they can work well at home or in a hybrid location. So let's get real about some of this conversation. And we know where it comes from, because sometimes we are the end product of a disappointed customer who can't make contact with the authority. We know that, and it's real. And for some portions of our communities, they are digitally deficient as well. And we need to deal with that. And that's what that customer access management system is about. But also that's what resilient communities is about. It's supporting the hubs in our communities to do some of that for us. So actually it's easy to access services in a locality, not necessarily here at, and I heard this was once referred to, dreadful was referred to the mothership. What the hell is all that about? You know, this is just the way sometimes people talk and you just think, what? Where, which planet are you on? You know? But anyway, great report. We've got to get real with this situation. And if anything, the workforce need our support, because a lot of them we forget, not necessarily the key workers who that the work gold does, but our carers who have made and continued, but also use technology to enhance their work. But also those back office functions that actually enable some of the line work to do their jobs as well, just as important. And you know, the minority are not the majority here. So that's why I want to that, and also, as echo your words recently, to thank all of our staff for their efforts and their continued efforts to try and operate safely with COVID as a continued risk, but also in this new agile and very real world we are living in.
I think it's important to note as well that the rule, that is, that the rule will be, the rule of norm is that if an officer is doing a presentation, it is wherever possible, that individual will be in the room so the presentation can be adequately presented. It may sound a bit weird, but we did have occasions where some of the technology that they were using didn't allow full absorption of what was being said. So wherever possible and necessary, the officers will be in the room. And finally, elected members have to be in the room for the decision to be valid. So, you know, that is important to understand that too. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. So I also want to endorse the report. I think we need to remember that during the several lockdowns that we've had, council services continued, nothing stopped. So I give you the example of children's services, and I've said it loads of times, and I continue to say it. My officers continue to work behind the scenes throughout the pandemic. They worked differently, but they still protected our young people and their families. They are the unsung heroes. I know we've all got them in all of our portfolios. So I think this is about a sensible, balanced approach. I think we've proven we can work differently, and I think we should continue moving forward, working differently, provided with the residents of all.
Thank Councillor Craddock, then Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. It would be remiss of me to not talk about it at this point in time where we have still got very high rates within the town, and I would continue to encourage people to get vaccinated. There are people still out there who are shielding and vulnerable who haven't come out the last 2 years, and actually it's a duty and a responsibility of us all to get that vaccination so that they can come back out into society as well and enjoy some of the benefits that we're doing. The policy that's in front of us today is a fantastic piece. It's all a positive thing for staff mental well-being. It's improving their lives, it's improving their outputs, and it's a benefit to all of us, both here and in the wider community.
Oliver.
Thank you, Leader. I'd also like to endorse the report. I think it's about attracting the right candidates to roles within the council. And if we don't offer this kind of balance, we're marketing ourselves out of that talent pool. The world has changed, and it's part of the package is attractive today. Just a couple of years ago, one of our best officers told me that she had to be at a desk by 9 o'clock, no allowances given, she'd got children, and the way we've moved on is such a huge change in that. That doesn't mean that people don't want to come in. Actually, the said officer doesn't necessarily have to go to the depot at that any day, but she chose to do so because you want to have that interaction. So I think that's finding a natural level. In terms of clean and green management, as Councillor Wilson said, services have continued to operate, and a lot of the management staff there come in because they want to, not because they have to. So, you know, it's about striking the right balance, and as we've all talked about, it's dealing with managing staff and make sure they're doing what they should be. Work is, what we do, not where we do it. And challenging issues where we're not delivering, and we know there are perhaps people with an organisation where that has to be challenged, but that's not about working from home or, people stipulating what should be done. That's about management within the organisation. So, as I said, I commend this report and support it. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you, Oliver. Yeah, I think Chris.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to add my endorsement to the report. It's very good and timely it's come to the Cabinet. For me, education has benefited from the technology that we've introduced. We've got closer to schools. We've had briefings with head teachers on a Thursday where we've had over 100 head teachers on briefings. It allowed us to determine decisions, put information out to people. So technology has really enhanced our working, particularly with schools, and to the benefit, obviously, of the children. That's the important thing. So technology has worked, and I endorse that.
Our investment in that technology, as you saw from the budget, will continue. And investment in people will continue, and the investment in new ways of working will continue. There's always a place for a physical body to be here, and I sincerely hope that we will see this flexible working bring forward departments that are available both digitally and physically within this building. It is fair to say that the First Stop Shop has not been open for, I think, 2 years now. I would question have we missed it? Have our residents missed it? Our residents still have had access to our services, and the idea will be going forward that they will have that access wherever possible for some services 24 hours a day. So therefore I welcome the report. Thank you, Mark, for bringing it tonight, and thank the officers for doing it and going forward. So I think the message is quite clear that digital working and hybrid working or flexible working is here to stay, but physical presence in some cases will still be required. So I'll formally move that then. Those in favour? It's carried. That completes the public part of the agenda. Tell me when the live stream is finished.